Welcome, Shadow Seekers, to American Shadows, Crimes and Chronicles. Today, we're unearthing a tale that'll haunt your thoughts long after it ends. Whether you're glued to the screen or just listening in, you're in for a wild ride through history's darkest corners. If you're new, hit subscribe to join our mission of exposing America's hidden truths. Regulars, your likes fuel our journey into the unknown. Now, let's peel back the layers of time and reveal the secrets beneath. Ready? Let's begin. 6 Days of Fire, How the Watts Riots Changed America Forever. Hello friends, you're watching American Shadows, and today we're delving into a pivotal moment that shook Los Angeles to its core and forever changed the conversation about race in America. On August 11, 1965, the streets of Watts erupted in flames and fury, marking the beginning of 6 days of violence that would leave an indelible mark on the nation's conscience. What transforms a routine traffic stop into a full-blown riot? How does a community's long simmering frustration explode into a conflagration that consumes an entire city? And why, more than half a century later, does the name Watts still resonate so powerfully in discussions of racial justice and urban unrest? Before we unravel this complex and contentious chapter in American history, I want to extend my heartfelt thanks to all of you who support our work. Your likes, comments, and shares are the lifeblood of this channel, helping us bring these shadowy corners of history to light. Your enthusiasm fuels our passion for storytelling, and we're truly grateful for each and every one of you. As we explore this powerful story, we'd love to hear from you. Were you or your loved ones affected by the Watts Riots or similar events? How do you think the echoes of Watts still reverberate in our society today? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Your perspectives add invaluable depth to these historical narratives. Now, let's step back to that sweltering summer evening in 1965, when the streets of Los Angeles were about to become a crucible for America's unresolved racial tensions. Picture, if you will, the Watts neighborhood of Los Angeles. The air is thick with heat and tension. For years, the predominantly African-American community has chafed under the weight of poverty, discrimination, and police brutality. The promises of the civil rights movement seem distant here, where unemployment is high, housing is substandard, and relations with law enforcement are strained to the breaking point. On that fateful Wednesday evening, 21-year-old Marquette Fry is pulled over by California Highway Patrol Officer Lee Minikis on suspicion of drunk driving. It's around 7 p.m. at the corner of Avalon Boulevard and 116th Street. What should have been a routine traffic stop quickly escalates. Fry's mother, Rena, arrives at the scene, and an argument ensues. Soon, a crowd gathers, drawn by the commotion. The spark has been lit. As Fry is arrested, tensions boil over. Rumors of police brutality spread rapidly through the community, fueled by years of pent-up frustration. By nightfall, the streets of Watts are alive with anger. Rocks and bottles fly through the air. Cars are overturned and set ablaze. The sound of breaking glass mingles with shouts of rage and the wail of sirens. Over the next 6 days, Watts becomes a war zone. Looters raid stores, buildings burn, and violent clashes erupt between residents and law enforcement. The Los Angeles Police Department, overwhelmed by the scale of the unrest, calls in the California National Guard. Military vehicles roll down city streets as smoke rises on the horizon. The violence is not without cost. By the time the riots subside on August 17th, 34 people lie dead, more than 1,000 are injured, and nearly 4,000 have been arrested. The material toll is staggering. Over 600 buildings damaged or destroyed, with property losses estimated at $40 million, equivalent to over $300 million today. But the Watts riots were more than just a spasm of violence. They were a desperate cry for help from a community that felt ignored and oppressed. The rebellion exposed the harsh realities of life in Watts: high unemployment, poor housing conditions, inadequate schools, and the pervasive presence of police brutality. In the aftermath, investigations reveal the deep-seated issues that had fueled the unrest. The McCone Commission, established to investigate the causes of the riots, concludes that the outbreak was a result of the community's long-standing grievances. However, many criticize the report for not going far enough in addressing systemic racism and police brutality. The impact of the Watts riots reaches far beyond Los Angeles. They mark a turning point in the civil rights movement, highlighting the gulf between legislative victories and the lived experiences of Black Americans in urban centers. The riots shatter the illusion that racial tensions are confined to the South, forcing the nation to confront the reality of Northern and Western racism. In response to the riots, President Lyndon B. Johnson expands his war on poverty, pouring resources into job training programs, education initiatives, and community development projects. However, many argue that these efforts, while well-intentioned, fail to address the root causes of racial inequality. The Watts Riots also have a profound impact on popular culture. They inspire works of art, literature, and music that grapple with themes of racial injustice and urban struggle. The events give rise to the Black Arts Movement, which seeks to create art that reflects the African American experience and promotes social change. Perhaps most significantly, the Watts Riots changed the way America views civil unrest. They set a pattern for urban riots that would be repeated in cities across the country in the years to come, from Newark to Detroit to Washington, D.C. The specter of Watts looms large in the national consciousness, shaping debates about law enforcement, urban policy, and racial justice for decades. The rebellion also marks a shift in the civil rights movement. While the movement had previously focused on achieving legal equality through nonviolent protest and legislative change, the Watts Riots underscored the limitations of these strategies in addressing the economic and social injustices faced by African Americans in urban areas. This shift led to the rise of more militant organizations, such as the Black Panther Party, that advocated for self-defense and community control. As we reflect on the Watts Riots more than half a century later, we're confronted with uncomfortable questions about how far we've come and how far we still have to go. How do we address the systemic inequalities that continue to plague our cities? Can we bridge the divide between law enforcement and communities of color? And how do we ensure that the voices of marginalized communities are heard before frustration boils over into violence? The legacy of the Watts Riots continues to resonate in ongoing struggles for racial and economic justice in the United States. While progress has been made, many of the issues that sparked the rebellion, police brutality, economic disparity, and systemic racism, remain at the forefront of national discourse. This is American Shadows, where we peer into the darker corners of our nation's past and present. Until next time, remember that sometimes the most pivotal moments in history are not grand gestures or sweeping reforms, but the accumulated weight of daily injustices that finally become too heavy to bear. The echoes of Watts continue to resonate today, reminding us of the ongoing struggle for equality and justice in America. As we go about our daily lives, let's take a moment to reflect on the lessons of Watts, for in understanding our past, we gain the wisdom to shape a more equitable future. The shadows cast by those 6 days in August 1965 are long indeed, and we ignore them at our peril.